So let's talk about the Ardrossan Brodick Ferry. I should declare an interest before we go any further because there's a few interests actually. I'm from Ardrossan, I'm an Ardrossan boy originally. I used to be the councillor for Ardrossan North, the elected councillor. I represented the SNP in North Ayrshire Council. I was Cunning District Council at the time. I also used to be the MSP that covered the area in the west of Scotland. So that I do have an interest here, that I don't pretend that I'm disinterested. Ardrossan is very much in my heart, it's my hometown. And all of a sudden we're seeing an application from Associated British Ports to take away the ferry from Ardrossan, locating the mainland port in Troon. Now, the only people who seem to be in favour of that option, and it has become an option only because Associated British Ports have made an application to the Scottish Government to change the ferry port, the mainland ferry port from Ardrossan to Troon, and the only people who seem to be in favour of that are Associated British Ports. So why are we discussing this? Why hasn't the Scottish Government immediately said to Associated British Ports, there's no option here, the move is not on, you're not getting the ferry, because for over 180 years the port of Ardrossan has served the people of Arran very well, and it's the people of Arran that we should be paying most attention to here, because the people on that island require the lifeline service that's provided by the ferry from Ardrossan. Now we all know that there are problems sometimes in bad weather getting into the port of Ardrossan, but are we honestly being asked to believe that the same weather that affects the Firth of Clyde somehow doesn't affect Troon, just a few miles down the coast? Of course it does. Ardrossan also has a railway line, a railway station at the ferry terminus. It's right on the doorstep. You know, you get the train from Glasgow all the way to Ardrossan Harbour, you get off the train, you get on the ferry, and you're on your way to the Isle of Arran. Troon has a railway station at the other end of the town from the harbour, so it doesn't sit well that that's a viable option. You know, people would have to get off the train in Troon and presumably get a bus or a taxi or something to take them to the harbour at the other end of town, whereas all the facilities are already there at Ardrossan. They're being improved at Ardrossan. The Scottish Government have made clear that they want to see Ardrossan improved, and they want to serve the people of the Isle of Arran. And there's also the fact that the cost involved would be greater for people travelling to Arran and the people of Arran travelling to the mainland. The Scottish Government introduced the road equivalent tariff, which lowered the fares. Those fares would be increased if the ferry went to Troon, because there's, you know, it's longer to get, it's a longer journey to get from Brodick to Troon, so the fares would go up, the journey time would go up. People in Arran, people travelling to Arran would be inconvenienced further. It's nonsense. The only people who want this are Associated British Ports, and what I don't understand is why Hamza Yousaf, the Transport Minister in the Scottish Government, hasn't already said, look, this isn't going ahead, there's no chance of this moving to Troon. Ardrossan is the favoured port, and Ardrossan will remain the port serving the island of Arran. There's other aspects to this, because in actual fact the ferry that serves the Isle of Arran is the last man standing for Ardrossan Harbour. Ardrossan used to be a very successful, very busy commercial port. That was destroyed by evil personified Margaret Thatcher when she decided to scrap the National Dock Labour Scheme and privatise dock labour, privatise the services that the dockers provided to ships from all over the world unloading cargo. And Ardrossan was a very, very busy, successful port. Now it's no longer a port. Now it's a marina, a yachting marina. And I was a councillor at the time that this was proposed, and I spoke out against changing and turning Ardrossan, the commercial port of Ardrossan, into a yachting marina. And the reason I spoke out was because I couldn't see how you could possibly replace all the jobs that were at the harbour at the time, dockers, you know, crane drivers, loads and loads of ancillary staff who served the port. and there was no way that they were going to replace all those jobs with a yachting marina. But at the time, the Labour-controlled council was telling everyone who would listen that there were going to be hundreds of jobs, hundreds of people, local people, employed at the yachting marina. Have a look for yourself next time you're down. See how many people are actually working at the yachting marina in Ardrossan, compared with at its peak well over 100 dockers, and as I say, the ancillary staff who also worked at the port. So the ferry, the Arran ferry, is the last man standing. If Ardrossan loses that, then there will be nothing left at the harbour other than a yachting marina. And even then, I don't think the owners of the yachts would mind me saying that quite a lot of them actually come down to Ardrossan, sit on the yacht or sit on their boat, and you know, have a weekend on the waves, but don't actually leave the harbour. So the town of Ardrossan doesn't benefit greatly from the yachting marina, because Asda benefits from the yachting marina with people buying their carry out for the weekend to sit on their boat. So it's important that we see that this is a long-term thing, the running down and the demise of the town of Ardrossan, because as well as Thatcher and her destructive behaviour, there was also the gross incompetence, as far as I'm concerned, of Labour councillors, both on, at the time, Cunningham District Council and on Strathclyde Regional Council. In 1995 they prepared a joint report, which was a regional strategy for the development of the three towns and North Ayrshire. And for Ardrossan, these Labour councillors decided that the shopping centre in Ardrossan, essentially Glasgow Street and Princes Street, should be what they described as a peripheral shopping area. In other words, should only serve the area around the shops themselves. So Montgomery Street, Glasgow Street, Princes Street, that area. Any business, any commercial retail business who wanted to set up in North Ayrshire was encouraged not to do so in Ardrossan, but to go to Saltcoats, as Saltcoats was designated by the Labour-run councils as the shopping centre for the three towns. And you know, to a certain extent it was. The bigger shops had always been in Saltcoats, but Ardrossan had its own shops, Stevenson had its own shops. That was all scrapped by this policy of Labour councillors to direct all retail development to Saltcoats. So Ardrossan and Stevenson lost out, and now you have or had a policy of the Labour-run council in North Ayrshire before the SNP had a turn, then handed it over to Labour when they lost the seat recently. The Labour council in North Ayrshire then had this idea that in actual fact the shopping centre for the whole of North Ayrshire should be Irvine. So again, retail, commercial people looking to set up in North Ayrshire were directed to Irvine, and now you see the Saltcoats town centre is becoming a ghost town, like Ardrossan and Stevenson. So the three towns are desperately crying out for investment, desperately crying out to retain the little that we do have still in Ardrossan, Saltcoats and Stevenson, and the loss of the ferry would be a devastating blow. We need to keep the ferry sailing from Ardrossan to Brodick and back into the town of Ardrossan. The local politicians, I think councillors of all political parties on this occasion, have united to oppose any idea of moving the ferry from Ardrossan to Troon. The MP has tabled an LOD motion at the UK Parliament. The MSP has tabled a motion at the Scottish Parliament, all supporting Ardrossan be retained as the port serving the Isle of Arran. So let's back this. It's one of the things that surely we can all unite on, those of us from the three towns, because bear in mind that there's actually a council election next May 2017, and those councillors who currently represent Ardrossan and Arran, you better believe there will be no votes for you come next May if you are not seen to protect the service from Ardrossan to Brodick. And it's also the case that, you know, next year, if polls are to be believed, then there's every chance the SNP could take virtually every council in Scotland, maybe one or two that they won't take, and one of those could be South Ayrshire Council, where the Tories could actually make some advances and maybe be in control of South Ayrshire Council, where Troon is located. So the SNP government could actually be saying, if they don't step in and say we want Ardrossan is staying as the port, mainland port serving Arden, then if they go to Troon, then you're going to have an SNP government allowing all this business and everything that goes along with a ferry operating between the mainland and an island, moving to a council run, or one of the few councils that could potentially be run by the Conservative Party, rather than North Ayrshire, where every chance is that the SNP will be back in control in May, as long as they don't allow the ferry to move from Ardrossan to Troon. So let's get behind this idea of supporting the ferry, keep it in Ardrossan, keep it sailing to Brodick from Ardrossan, and let's serve the island the way it has been served to the best of our ability for over 180 years. Ardrossan is where the Arden ferry should sail from and should sail into in the mainland. There is a petition, it's been lodged on change.org. It's petitioning the Scottish Government to come out and actually say that Ardrossan will be retained as the mainland ferry port. It's been lodged by a woman called Terry Jan Lambie, who's from Brodick. So the islanders again are behind retaining Ardrossan as the ferry port. We'll put the petition name along the bottom of the screen, and if you can, if you've got the time, then please go to change.org and sign the petition to keep Ardrossan as the ferry port serving the Isle of Arden. Thank you.